So you've started your podcast, or perhaps you're just doing a bit of research like I did for many months before starting mine. Either way, you're considering how you can get more reach with your podcast, how you can make that podcast goodness, all the amazing information that you're explaining and imparting to your audience in an audio format, how you can actually make that go further and reach more people. Good question. In this video, I'm going to give you some tips on exactly how you can do that. Now, if we're meeting for the first time, then hi, my name's Liam. I'm creating online learning resources and have done professionally for quite some time now. And I'm starting to share videos such as this one on just that, whether that's creating videos, the series that I'm currently recording about podcasting and how to share your message and expertise using your voice. And also I'll be going on to a little bit of online learning at a later stage. But for the focus of this video, we're talking, of course, about how you can make your podcast go further. And absolutely right. You've already done the hard work of recording your episodes. You've already shared that essential information with those people that you've got tuned in to listen to you. But if we're all honest, and as much as I hate to admit it, not everybody is a fan of a podcast, and some people still don't know what they are. And I've got a video up in one of the corners there that does explain that. So if you have found this and you're not sure what a podcast are, then not quite sure why you're watching, but equally go and find that out, or perhaps spread it out to some of your potential guests if they are a little bit unsure. But anyway, sidetrack there, I'm terribly sorry. How can we actually make your podcast recording go further? Now, first of all, you've done the hard work, you've published your podcast episode, you've got the reach in regards to the listens. Now, if you're like me and you've listened to a lot of other podcasts in the past, you'll be familiar with this one. And this is where you actually reference other episodes in future episodes. So if you know that there's a really good bit of information, perhaps there's a fantastic interview, or you've spoken about a topic before, then be sure to reference that in your podcast recording. So we're only talking lightly about the information about this microphone that I'm using today, but actually I recorded an episode about that 2 episodes ago. So be sure to, once you finish this episode, go back and listen to that. And same for the video, I'm going to put another card up there. I've recorded some videos on perhaps starting out and microphones. If you're interested in that kind of thing, practice what I'm preaching here and see what I'm doing. But basically, just make sure you encourage your audience who's already on your podcast to go and look at some of the earlier episodes that you have been creating. The next tip, because I'm sure that you probably already knew that, right? If you didn't, why not give me a comment below and let me know. But the next tip on making your podcast go further is by actually putting your podcast on a website. Now, for those of you who are thinking, really, I'm putting my podcast on a website, that must be complicated. Not these days. Maybe once upon a time, but actually most media hosts that you're using, and I use one called Buzzsprout, it's fantastic. And if you're considering using Buzzsprout, then I do have an affiliate link down there, so you can get an Amazon voucher, and I'll get some compensation for me referring you there. So, you know, it's win-win. You get something, I get something. But equally, Buzzsprout is like many podcast media hosts in regarding that they will give you some code that you simply have to copy and paste into your website, and then a really clean player will appear on the position that you've located it. Now, for adding this to a website, why on earth would we do that, Liam? It's a website. You don't go to a website to listen to a podcast. Well, one really great reason for you doing this is for those people who haven't found your podcast yet, but they've found your website because you've done some fantastic work with your SEO. Not only will they be given the choice to listen, and they can perhaps discover your podcast and go and subscribe to it at a later date if you've convinced them of your awesomeness, but as well as that, having your podcast episode on your website will improve your SEO. And the reason it will do that is because SEO takes into account bounce rate, or how quickly someone leaves your page or your site. So if you've got your podcast episode embedded onto your site, somebody goes there as a point of reference to find out the information where you've got that on the page where you currently are, but they stumble across your podcast and they press play and they listen to 10 minutes, half an hour, however long your episode happens to be, then Google's going to take that as they're really interested in your site. So it is potentially a really good idea for you to embed that onto your site. And as I say, it should be pretty simple for you to do. If you'd like me to do a video on how to do that, then again, leave me some comments in the comments below, and I'll look into getting one of those recorded for you. Another tip for how to get more out of your podcast recordings and how to make them go further is by using the information in the form of text. So changing the words that you've said on the podcast into a transcription. Now that transcription might need a little bit of tweaking, so you can turn it into an article, a blog post, or even shorter social media quotes. It's a fantastic way of you using the information that you've been able to impart verbally, and also to promote your show, because you can say, if you want to hear more, come over to the podcast to listen in further detail. Now, instead of you actually listening back and typing out or writing out everything that you've said, what you can do is use some automated services. So there's rev.com, there's Descript, and there's also another way of doing this, again on a bit of a shoestring budget here, but if you happen to have Microsoft Word, then I found a little bit of a workaround where I've asked Word to dictate to me, and I've basically put my headphones next to the microphone. It is a rubbish hack, but yeah, it's a way of getting around that if you haven't got a budget for those other services. Otter's another popular one, which it does come at a price point, and again, if you're interested in me reviewing some of those, then please do let me know. So transcriptions, fantastic way of you repurposing that content and getting more goodness out of the information that you've talked about. But another big one that you've probably seen if you're on any kind of social media at the moment is turning your podcast into shorter social media audiograms. So I'm going to put one on screen here, but as you'll see, there's a bit of animation, whether that's got text or just images. You'll see a WAV file animating, and it's just a different way of you being able to show that information and let somebody hear the episode, as well as some text that I'm sure you'd put in with a post. So we've got a shorter video, but that's not forgetting the longer videos too. So if you are recording your podcast episode and you're able to get access to a camera and you want to turn that into longer form content for a YouTube channel, or to have the recording that you can chop up into mini segments, then that is another fantastic idea and way of you getting more for what it is that you're doing with your fabulous podcast. I hope these tips and ideas have helped you. I'd love to hear if it has. Give me a like if you found this video valuable. If you know any other methods of you getting more value out of your podcast, and all ears, I'd love to hear more to help my podcast, but also so I can perhaps do a video on it at a later date. Just leaves me to say, if you're keen to learn more about podcasting, then do check out this video over here. And if you want to learn more about me, this one here, don't forget to subscribe if you feel like it.